Well, Jen, last week I had to rush you because I had to go pick up some kids and get them to a hockey practice. I have to rush you again this week, but this is because literally this is the last thing I have to do before I go on vacation. So bye. It's actually probably going to be a short enough dispatch anyway. In terms of Ukraine, I will write something that sort of updates where we are on the fighting, which seems to be that the Ukrainians are holding on and the Russians are blowing the shit out of them, which is exactly what we expected to happen. You would have had some comments, though, reacting to a bad question. Not a bad question, a badly phrased question from a CBC reporter that kicked off a bit of a shitstorm.
Yeah, Travis Generage, like he basically asked Chrystia Freeland, why are you here on the taxpayer's dime, essentially?
You're in London or Berlin?
Yeah, like, is this really worth, when you've got so many domestic issues at home, is this really worth you spending taxpayer money on? And he got criticized, not totally wrongly, for being a bit parochial and narrow-minded in that question. Yeah. Considering the situation, considering Canada is a part of NATO, we're a G7 country, we do have to be there, we do have to show the flag. And like, I don't want to like add to the pile on the guy, because I think he's a good reporter, and I just think it was a badly phrased question.
Yeah, he was at Queen's Park for a long time, and I've watched that Global with him. He's a good reporter. He's a good guy. He had
good guy.
Phrased question.
Had a badly phrased question, and so I kind of felt bad for him on that front. But I think that there was a side sort of set of ramblings that I went into on Twitter, and I probably didn't phrase it as well as I ought to have, considering it was Twitter. But my cynical side came out, and I was like, look, I do agree that we had to be there, and like that's just what's the gambling term when you pay a certain number of chips just to be at the table? Table stakes. Like, being there is table stakes, and that's just what it is. I think that's completely fine to accept. My issue is that I've seen from this government, you've seen from this government, so often they're engaging in these kinds of acts of performative statesmanship. Yep. And they're not backed by anything concrete or useful. I mean, our bid to be on the UN Security Council was kind of an example of this.
Oh, we wanted to be on the UN Security Council so that the Liberals could say we're back on the UN Security Council.
100%, yes.
They had no vision of the world or what Canada would do. It was, wow, we want to be on the UN Security Council.
Totally, and that's before we get into the sort of weird liberal connections with China, and sort of like the weird flirtation that we've been doing with some of these autocratic countries, and like there's all kinds of that kind of ickiness. But my issue with this is that there's an element of 90s era blue hat, we're peacekeepers, middle broker of the world nostalgia that the Liberals have been trying to triumph and try to come to power on since 2015. It was a direct rebuke to like Stephen Harper is this creepy isolationist who's damaged Canada's reputation abroad. And we know that Canadians respond to that because we care about our reputation abroad. And Justin Trudeau is going to be exactly the face that will help to rehabilitate Canada's crumbling reputation internationally. And like, this has been an underlying theme of a lot of Canada's foreign policy for so long. And I just get really cynical about these sorts of acts of performative statesmanship, because to me, it reads like, we're actually doing nothing and bringing nothing to the table, but you're there for a domestic audience. You're there for domestic consumption. You're there because if you show up and you appear in the right pictures, you can sort of make it look like Canada is back and being taken real seriously, on the world stage. But in reality, like, we have no functional military at this point. Like, we're not useful here. We're not major players. So that's my.
It's about all we can do.
Showing the flag is pretty much all we can do. And if you wanted to see Canada demonstrate something material and useful, I would need to hear the Liberal government or Joe Freeland do things like promise to take on 250,000 refugees. Why don't we do that? Let's just do that. We can do that.
Yep.
We're going to increase spending to 2% of GDP as per NATO requirements. We're going to fix our procurement processes. Like, these would be concrete statements and steps we could be taking. That would convince me that like this is more than just performative nonsense. And instead, whenever Justin Trudeau's been asked a direct question about anything related to stuff like this, he's given these sort of mealy-mouthed non-answers, and that gets all my cynicism buttons going. Now here's my big caveat: the summit's not over. we may see in the coming days that in fact more stuff was going on behind the scenes. And if that's the case, I will be very happy. Like, I'll be very happy if we are doing material, concrete things to help alleviate some faction of this conflict. And if that happens, I will be openly say so. Like, I will praise the government for that. But this is sort of my cynicism coming out, and this is why this is kind of where I think Travis was kind of trying to get at with his poorly phrased question.
Yep.
And he just kind of botched it. And so I kind of felt for the guy. But we've all botched questions at press conferences. That's just, it happens. So I didn't like the pile on him, and I was kind of trying to defend him a little bit, but probably not as well as I probably could have. So I think I would probably want to write about that with the big open caveat that it's totally possible more stuff's happening behind the scenes that we don't see, and great. And also, I would also say Chrystia Freeland's done, from what I can understand, a pretty good job sort of pushing the G7 on sanctions. Like, she's been a really leading vocal voice on that. Now, that being said,
I'm not a fan of Freeland, but I wrote that dispatch for last week or the week before. She's performing well in this moment.
She's had the moments of her career in this particular moment, and good on her. Like, I mean, I have no hesitation in giving her praise for this.
I mean, my cynicism is basically aligned with yours. Now, there are three things we can do relatively quickly. Two of them we can actually execute pretty quickly. One of them we could announce will take a while to execute. First one, as you said, roll out a major commitment to military spending. I've heard whispers that something like this might actually happen, but they're going to need some time because they haven't thought about it before. Like, they're starting from scratch of like, do we need a military? The thing that I was saying with a buddy just last night, if the first year of going to 2% is actually going to be really easy, because you give me a whiteboard in 30 minutes and I could write up a list of things we could sink money into right now that would give us that first year of spending, maybe even 2 or 3 years, just to flesh out capabilities we claim we have but actually don't. So like, we could spend $30 billion on the armed forces and not add a new capability. We would actually just put some meat on our bones. The problem is going to be year 3, year 4, year 5, because it's a sustained annual commitment. We're going to need a defense policy. Like, we're going to need a full-on departmental policy review to figure out what we actually want to do. So that's one thing we can announce. Then we'll actually have to do it. The two things we could actually do, though, and you've mentioned one of them already, refugee commitment. Like, right now, we've already pledged supplies and medical teams and rations and donations. But let's say we're committed. You said 250,000. Sure. Let's bring in 250,000 Ukrainians. We'll do it in the next 3 months. We've done it before. We can do it. The other thing is agriculture. We are not paying enough attention to how much of the world's grains come from that part of the world. And if the Russian economy collapses, are they going to get fertilizer? Are they going to get spare parts for tractors?
And the other thing too is, like, apparently there's issues with potash and fertilizer. We happen to be sitting on a shit ton of potash. And that actually might require some short-term government investment or help in order to increase production at a level that people can afford.
I'm thinking even weirder than you are. I'm thinking we might have to actually start thinking about a strategic food plan to feed. Like, I'm not worried about it here, but we could have allies finding themselves in a very precarious food situations, and Canada and the United States, we can feed the world. Let's hope it freaking rains this summer. So those are my things. But I mean, no, look, your cynicism is entirely warranted. Like, this is Justin Trudeau probably is resisting the urge to show up at NATO headquarters and explain how a quantum computer works. Like, this is a guy who is the performative prime minister. And I like, everyone always says, oh, you're saying that as a criticism. I'm weirdly not. He's really good at it. And this is something like where I think one of my little pet theories, one of the reasons conservatives have been so angry the last 7 years is because they're so frustrated they can't put a glove on the guy they think is just the drama teacher. And I've always said to them, well, stop being angry and figure out how to do something about it. But nobody listens to me. I don't have anything more on Ukraine. I don't have anything more.
No, I think that's about it. We're kind of in a holding pattern until
the fighting's deadlocked. Like,
fighting's deadlocked.
Which is
really interesting. Really interesting.
I know.
I've got a column coming out
this week from Ukraine, which is, we're very happy about that. The fact that we're actually connecting, power of the internet, we're connecting with freelancers on the ground. It's expensive, but
as it ought to be.
I'm glad we're doing it. Like, we are actually generating new journalism from afar. You and I both have huge FOMO, but at least I feel a little bit better that we're not in Ukraine doing journalism, but we're supporting journalism in Ukraine, and I genuinely feel pretty happy about that.
So do I. I've got a column coming out tomorrow, sort of lamenting the thing on McDonald's. I'm really excited about that. I think that
Today,
actually might be.
you know what? By the time this video airs, it'll be today.
It'll be today. I think that people might respond really well to it, or they might be like, "This is way too weird and gruesome-y." So we'll see how it goes. But I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of excited about that one. I think it's good. I think it might be good.
Mine readers have an unusually high tolerance for Gersonism.
Yeah, they probably do.
So here's a fun one. Normally, this is not an official thing, but normally we've kind of divided up the country where I focus more on Eastern Canadian things and you focus more on Western Canadian things because duh. I write a lot about Ontario stuff. You write a lot about Alberta stuff. And if there's stories in the other provinces, we will kind of go, okay, who's the better person to talk about this? And I kind of handle Eastern Canada, you handle Western Canada. There was a genuinely interesting Ontario story this week that actually has national implications. Patrick Brown, former leader of the Ontario Progressive Conservatives, and currently the mayor of Brampton, one of the large cities in Toronto's suburban ring. Patrick Brown was the leader of the Ontario PCs until one weird January night just over 4 years ago. CTV reported a story, and we want to be very clear for legal purposes because there's so many freaking lawsuits flying around. These are allegations that CTV reported citing 2 instances of sexual misconduct targeting Patrick Brown. One of them was a staffer that he had allegedly requested oral sex from and received, I believe. And the other one was a very young campaign volunteer or something like that, who he, again, allegedly plied with alcohol and then initiated a sexual encounter with, which she stopped and requested a ride home. Allegedly, he took her home. CTV botched a detail. They reported the age of the young volunteer, I think it was, campaign volunteer or office volunteer or something. They reported her age at the time of the alleged incident as 18. They later corrected that to 19. CTV otherwise stands by their story. And a settlement was announced between them this week. Very interesting stuff here. So first of all, CTV stands by the story, but acknowledges that they got the age wrong. The younger accuser was 19 at the time of the alleged offense, not 18. I don't know if that makes a big difference to anyone, but okay.
But it does make a big perceptual difference because Brown can now go around saying, "I've been vindicated. CTV admits they were wrong."
That's it, right? I mean, I said to you before we started rolling, if anyone ever takes a big run at me for the take Gurney down, I want them to get one factual error in there so that I can.
I assure you, I will not make any factual errors. I'm taking diligent notes.
No, I know, but believe me, we're in a mutually assured destruction scenario. The other thing was that CTV also in their story embedded right in the headline said no money exchanged hands. So there's been a legal settlement, but they claim there has been no payout, which is a really interesting thing for them to have explicitly said. The other thing is that it's funny. I mentioned normally I handle Eastern, you handle Western. I had to go refresh my brain for the Patrick Brown thing because it was 4 years ago. And I had remembered there was a really big piece in Maclean's about it. So I searched Patrick Brown sexual misconduct Maclean's, found the article, clicked on it, and you wrote it.
Yeah, I did. That was actually one of the biggest stories I've had of my career to date. I
remembered the story. I'd forgotten it was you.
Yeah, I got leaked and also the fact that a Western Canadian got leaked this particular piece and none of the Queen's Park people did was just very, very gratifying for me personally. But I got leaked a piece, or I got leaked one of the caucus conference calls where caucus was discussing whether or not to basically boot him. And then halfway through the call, he comes on the line, is like, "Yeah, I've been listening to everything you just said." It was amazing. It was amazing. And then from there, I wrote some more things about Patrick Brown. I also wrote a piece for The Walrus about it. And I think my piece for The Walrus was like, even if we just go by what Patrick Brown himself has admitted to, it doesn't meet the standard of criminal conduct, certainly. But what he's admitted to is certainly inappropriate and skeevy conduct. Now, this was sort of in the midst of Me Too. conversations around sexual dynamics and sexual harassment, particularly in the workplace, were very sensitive at that particular moment. And because this had allegations involving him and a staffer and inappropriate sort of power dynamics at that moment, this raised some interesting questions. So, the voters of Brampton decided that he deserved to maintain a political career. That was their call. And it's not for me to say that was right or wrong, because it's just, I can't analyze this stuff, but I don't know, this is kind of the voters' call. It's kind of does Patrick Brown get to maintain a position of power after, arguably abusing that power according to his own according to the allegations. And I think even what he's admitted to constitutes a bit of an abuse of some of that power. So, that's kind of for the voters to decide. That is for the voters to decide.
The thing,
do I think he's going to go into a leadership race with a totally unblemished record? Do I think that this response from CTV completely clears him? I don't know. Does he have? Is it possible for someone to be redeemed? He since has been got married to a staffer, ironically, but he's been married. Has he cleaned up his act a little bit? Is he behaving in a way that's more appropriate for someone in his position and age? I don't know. It's is there a redemption arc here? Good question.
It's interesting because I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember some of the details here, and it goes back. Give me 1 second. I know that this is terrible for the video. I'm rapidly scrolling.
I think I in the Walrus article, I actually spelled out what he admitted to.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to remember. Was the woman he married a former member of his camp? She was some.
Yeah, she was. She had
I think some connection to him, staff or volunteer. I don't remember, and I want the lawyers to know that. So we're both editing what we're saying here, but I think there was something like that. The other thing, Jen, I would mention, and again, hi lawyers, look how carefully we're phrasing this. You and I, as journalists, had both previously heard rumors of impropriety surrounding Patrick Brown and his conduct with women.
I hadn't, because I was not reporting in Ontario.
Oh, I thought you had. Okay, so
no.
Right, then allow me to very carefully say this. When the story broke in 2018, I was not shocked. I went, oh, okay. I have no direct information. Lawyers, listen to me. I have no direct information because I was never reporting this or covering it directly. But there had long, even before he was Ontario PC leader, there had long been rumors going back to the time of his leadership campaign. There had been rumors of, oh boy, there's a lot of baggage there. There's a lot of skeletons in that closet. And then they didn't come out in the campaign. He was elected leader. In 2018, when this came out, a lot of people in my line of work went, oh, CTV finally got it. Mm-hmm. And that could be a bad thing, right? Rumors can skew perceptions, and it can lower, it can impair the judgment of editors who, editors can get go fever, right? Oh, we're gonna get him. So I can only stress again, I don't know if any of the rumors I've been hearing for years were true or not. I have no idea, never looked into it, have no direct information. But the amount of rumors that had been swirling around Patrick Brown before this happened were enormous. And when it happened, I think a lot of people who had been either paying any attention or adjacent to this at all went, oh, okay, CTV finally got someone on the record. There are times when reports like this come out and everybody's like, whoa, wow. There are times when it comes out and you go, oh yeah, okay. Patrick Brown was, okay. This had been widely expected for a long time. The fact that CTV has acknowledged and made that correction, but has stuck otherwise to every detail of their reporting, I think is really interesting. You and I are reading tea leaves here. Obviously, there's been a legally negotiated agreement between the two parties, but CTV is sticking to their guns as much as the lawyers will let them.
Yeah. So interesting. I don't want to condemn Patrick Brown. Like I said, he has not been accused of anything resembling criminal conduct, to the best of my, well, actually, that's why the age was crucial, right? Because
If she was 18, she was the age to consent for sexual contact, but not to buy alcohol.
But not to buy alcohol.
She would have been a minor in Ontario.
Yeah.
Also,
this is why the age actually was crucial it was a crucial detail. It was a serious mess up to get the age wrong.
You're in legally fraught ground if you are initiating a sexual encounter with someone who's intoxicated.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So anyway, and all
this
background, and he wants apparently to run for Conservative leader.
Okay. All right, like I said, we're gonna have to see how well that works. It's possible to say what's going to happen at the Conservative race at this point, but I don't think he has a hope in hell. I really don't. I could be wrong.
The Conservatives right now are such a tire fire. Like, I make no predictions about what's going to happen there.
No, but I mean, ironically, it's not going to be the allegations of sexual misconduct that get on Patrick Brown. It's going to be that he supported a carbon tax.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be the allegations of climate change.
Exactly. Like, that's what's horrible about all of this. But anyway, so I can do a thing. We were going to talk about me doing a column about Patrick Brown next week. I'm kind of inclined to sort of jump on the horse here and just do a dispatch blurb and just note, CTV is not actually backing down from this story here.
Well, hey, look, I'm on vacation next week, so you can do whatever the hell you want. What I would say, though, is I see two ways of doing this. One of them is the Patrick Brown Conservative leadership race, all that stuff. That's a column unto itself. The media angle could be a dispatch.
Yeah. Okay, let's do the media angle as a dispatch.
You don't have to double dip. Like, I'm off duty starting in about 20 minutes. So
and also we'll see what happens. Like, I'm going to time my column for Friday because we have most of our columns more or less next week lined up. So I'm going to time mine for Friday, which gives me the opportunity to work with whatever is happening in the news.
Okay. Yeah, that works. Yep. No, I'm fine with that. I mean, also, like I said, like, the moment I'm gone, it's all up to you.
All on me.
Okay, so the only other thing left on the agenda for us, this is a fun dispatch blurb. Turning Red, a new Disney animated movie, is out today or tomorrow. And normally you don't normally think of Disney movies as sources of controversy, but it is a movie where the protagonist, first of all, it's set in Canada, which is
Toronto.
No one really,
and like aggressively set in Toronto. Like, the trailer has multiple shots of the CN Tower.
And the protagonists are like tween girls, like a diverse multi-ethnic group of like 12 or 13 somethings. And the movie is kind of like, they're going through puberty, they're changing, they're figuring out how to be adults, blah blah blah. And there was
the protagonist is a Chinese Canadian who discovers that she can turn into a red panda.
Oh, you know more about this than I do. I've seen the trailer like once. Anyway, this became controversial. Was it Cinema Blend? Like, one of the big
Cinnamon Blend. It's one of the movie things, and I believe it was a Canadian writer as well.
Wrote a review that got yanked before I even read it, but he basically said that this is a movie that is aggressively pitched at a specific audience, and I am not this audience. And I found
essentially he said, like, this movie is made for the Chinese Canadian director and her friends, and like, to anybody else who is outside of that circle, it's totally exhausting to watch. He had to backtrack imminently. I believe Cinema Blend's apologized and said it was an editing error. It shouldn't have gone up at all.
Cinema Blend it's gone.
Yeah, they nuked the article. They completely nuked it. I can't even read it. Some of the most egregious quotes have been quoted elsewhere, so I could go for it. And I'm kind of two minds of this, is that I'm not inclined to defend something that Cinema Blend itself won't stand behind.
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting about this is that there is an element of sort of woke cancel culture vibe to all of this, and there is a sense that, like, this white dude reviewer can't be shitting on this a creation that was created by a Chinese Canadian person because they're not taking that person's experience into account. And I'm like, that's kind of stupid. That's kind of a stupid argument, because bluntly, not every piece of art or entertainment is made for everybody.
Of course.
And that's okay. That's okay. It's okay for this reviewer to be like,
not for me.
It's not for me. Now, there's an interesting question about whether or not he was the right reviewer for that piece. Would it have made more sense to have a woman review that piece? Would it have made more sense to have a woman of a diverse background to review that piece? Because then maybe they should have someone for whom the intended audience kind of see if they connect with the piece or not. But I mean, this idea that like he's saying, okay, that this show isn't universal. That's a fair critique. It's completely reasonable to say that this particular show isn't universal. Most art isn't universal, right? Most art doesn't appeal to people universally. Most art now has to appeal to particular subgroups of niches, and I think that's what's kind of getting lost in all this hubbub about this. It's what do you mean it's not universal? This is universal. Anybody can relate to that. I'm like probably not though, and like that's okay. It's okay that most people probably can't relate to this.
I am a military historian, Trekkie Rush fan. Like, I don't want pan-universal content. I want my Star Trek and Rush and Battle of Midway documentary. Like, you do you, I'll do me. That's the best part of living in this era. That being said, I do have three general thoughts for this. The first is that Cinema Blend has no balls. When you shit the bed, you clean it up. You don't just burn the bed. They had a breakdown here. And as you well know, I have overseen an editorial breakdown or two in my time. I don't know if I've ever handled them perfectly. My response has never been to run away. Like, as a journalist, as an editor, as a publication, sometimes you take your lumps and you stand there and you smile at the world and tell everybody how much you're enjoying it and how much you're learning from it, and you're actually hating every minute of it, but you take your lumps. Cinema Blend did not take their lumps. They folded like a cheap suit. And I don't know what my professional expectations were of Cinema Blend. I don't know if I have any, but that's kind of shitty how they think they handle this. Secondly, from what I understand, the allegory of the movie is about puberty. It is about your body changing in ways you can't control, transitioning from one part of your life to another. I haven't seen the movie yet. I only know this because I've read about the controversy. There is no more universal human experience than reaching sexual maturity, and your body doesn't.
Yeah, but I mean, that experience for women is different as it is for men. And the other thing I would say is the I think maybe the cultural references went over the reviewer's head. I'm saying there's a way to do stories. I'm willing to bet Are You There, God is Margaret was one of the seminal books of young women going through puberty in my era. My guess is that if you were to read Are You There, God is Margaret, you would not be able to relate. And that is okay.
I've heard of it.
It's fine. It's fine.
I think the third point I would make though is that if you and I as editors and as writers, we will occasionally poke the bear, the red panda bear, I guess. We will do this. We will
occasionally poke the red panda.
We will normally do it knowingly. We'll be we're going to make a strategic choice here because something needs to be said. We wrote about it last week in our last dispatch, which is why we will not save Ukraine by risking nuclear war with Russia. People respected the take. We had good feedback on it. That's an example of how you say something unpopular. You say it's smart, you make your case. If this guy wanted to make the smart case that not for me, others will enjoy it. Animation was great, really engaging, voice acting and songs, but I think unless you're an absolute a Disney completist, you can miss it. There's a smart way to write that review, and there's a really goddamn stupid way to write the review, and it looks like this guy chose door number 2. And I don't care that much when people get themselves into trouble. The only thing I find interesting about this is that Cinema Blend nuked the review. And as a journalist, but also originally as a historian, I don't like removing things from the public record.
No, I agree. I totally agree that is the crucial point here. I agree that that's the crucial point. That's got to be the top line of that particular blurb. I think the secondary thing is it's okay. It's okay if it's not universally liked. It's okay.
I know. Yeah.
It's okay. Even if this thing is literally made for a particular cohort of young women in Toronto in a particular age group, that's all right. If there's an audience for it, that's fine. That's totally fine. And the oversensitivity, it's the oversensitivity to one white dude saying, I don't think this is universally applicable, that I think is a bit unhealthy, you know? Like I think the healthier response is going to be like, who cares if it's not universal?
It's there's a really interesting push and pull in this debate, and I don't know where the perfect line of it is, but on the one hand, I understand the importance of having people tell their own stories. Like if I want to see a movie about the experience of a young Chinese girl growing up in Toronto, I shouldn't write the damn thing. Like we grew
Yeah.
up in the same city, but our life experiences are radically different. I want that movie to be written by someone who has lived experience. On the other hand, I have a right to think the movie sucks.
Yeah.
And like this is where our culture debates are getting weird, right? Because on the one hand, authenticity and representation are important, and done correctly will give you better art. The other problem, of course, though, is that we are carving out exclusion zones in pop culture where it's not enough anymore to say, well, that's not for me. You have to be like, and I have zero opinions about it. And any opinions I have are white settler, patriarchal, colonial, like whatever. You know what? There's a lot of music out there I like. There's a lot of music out there I think is shit. Not political. It's just not my taste. And I think we're in an era where
It's an era. It's the criminalization of personal taste.
yeah,
The criminalization is the wrong way to phrase it, but it's like it's the
politicized
problematization
personal taste.
or the problematization of individual taste.
That's better. That's better said. And of course,
Yeah.
my tastes reflect my culture and my upbringing and all that stuff, right? Like, you and I grew up in big cities.
But this gets to the whole idea that like you can't have representation if the culture at large doesn't accept and like what you're producing. So we have to have like increasingly narrow and niche produced content
Yeah,
that has to be universally applicable. And because you can't make it universally applicable, you have to essentially guilt people into liking it.
exactly. You can't like that. As I
That's
said
the
before,
issue.
it's the push and pull, right? It's on the
Yeah.
one hand, every artistic product must be incredibly pure and specific and a niche. On the other hand, they all must have universal appeal, or you're an asshole.
Yeah.
And
That's what I find interesting about this particular debate and issue.
yeah, no, I agree.
It's that's what's fascinating about it, this particular review, and why Cineblends backed down so quickly, because they just didn't have the wherewithal to fight that particular fight or battle.
What's the
So I
movie
think it's
years
I think
ago?
it's interesting.
Was it Get Out? That movie
Yeah.
years ago. So I had a bit of a laugh because Get Out was sort of like trying to know how to describe it, like a thriller movie, but that had like real racial undertones about like
It's like a terrifying horror film, essentially. Yeah.
And what was funny was how two of my buddies, I was just out for beers. This is before the pandemic when beers were easy. And we were out, and like two of my buddies, both white guys, had just seen the movie. Not even together. It just turned out they'd both seen it. One of them was like, I didn't get it at all. I thought it was bullshit. I hated it. I didn't like it at all. The other guy was like, I loved it. It was profoundly intelligent. Like it was subtle. And I just thought it was really interesting, right? Because these are both well-educated, well-informed, smart guys from the same demographic background, same neighborhood. We're old friends. And one of them was like, I get it and I love it. The other one is like, I hated it, went right over my head. And neither of them were wrong. Like it was just like, wow, two different people saw the same film and came to different conclusions. I saw it at the time too. When did that come out? I think my son was young. Yeah, okay, my son was young. There's like a period of my life when my little guy, whoa, got dark there all of a sudden. When my little guy was little that I just do not remember. So there's probably like 50 movies I've seen, but I would, if I watched them again today, it would be like seeing it for the first time. So I should probably go watch Get Out again. But you know what? I bet you next week I'm going to watch Turning Red. My kids are excited for it. It's a Disney movie.
Yeah. That's what's about Toronto. It's based in Toronto. They're going to see their
care.
landmarks in a Disney movie. It's going to be great.
It's just,
I might see it just because like I spent several years in Toronto too, and that will be very cool. Like Toronto's got a particular vibe and aesthetic, which is really awesome. So it's great.
I don't have anything else.
I don't have anything else. I think those are three goods, and we're getting another one from our friend. So that's
we got
four
one
in
more
the bank.
coming in.
So I'll do. Do you want me to do?
Like I'll do situational update. Do you want me to also do performative stuff, or do you want?
If you could do performative stuff. The crucial things I would like us to mention is things I would like to see Canada do. So agriculture plan, refugee, and NATO spending. Like please announce something concrete publicly. Thank you. And also just the fact that like there's been nothing but word salad coming out of Trudeau. That thing that you tweeted where he was like, it's important for us to listen to other people. That's how we're challenged. And we're it's a real hypocritical thing for him to have said at that particular moment.
He's
Do you
not
want me to
always
do?
artist.
No. Do you want me to do Patrick Brown and Turning Red?
If you can, that's the dispatch plus the one or two other things we might have coming in from some of our other contributors. All right. Well, Jen, you effective now have the con. You have the bridge.
The con or com?
Con. It's old naval term. CONN. I didn't want to correct you after that email, but yeah, you have the con. CONN, which means you are in command. You're in command next week, and then the week after that, we're taking off entirely. I think that's the March.
Yeah, because I think I think March break for me actually is next week, so I could be fucked, but that's fine. That's fine.
It is. No, you're fine. You're good. I just pulled it up right now. So next week I'm off entirely. You have the con. The week after that, we're both off. So the line will be very quiet. Hopefully Putin doesn't nuke anything that week. Okay.
You know what? You just doomed us, right?
Yes. And probably some Polish
air. World.
Okay. I got nothing else. Everybody, be kind to Jen next week while I'm off. Jen, good luck to you. And we've discussed puberty more in this dispatch video than is normal, but that's fine. Take care, everybody.
Bye.